Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. I'm glad you're here this morning. Got a great show lined up. Got some good reports, and I have Stan Kirkland here in the studio. So let's get started first with our weather, brought to us by Haney Tactical Center at 767-5500. High today is going to be 66 and low tonight 46. Really nice weather. The wind sort of dying down a little bit. Water temperature stays around at 71 degrees. Now, the river readings, take a look at our river readings. We're still at, Apalachicola is still at 0.4, but the Choctawhatchee is going up from 1.6. It's already going from 1.6 to 1.8. So y'all watch that over there in Choctawhatchee. Y'all don't get in trouble over there with that rising water. Folks, I don't think I've ever seen the river stay this low for this long a period of time. All right, now let's take a look at our tide chart. Today will be November the 15th. Got a strong tide. We got a low tide this morning, 7:43, and a high tide tonight is 9:37. Strong incoming tide all day. We're looking at a 2-foot range today, tomorrow, and this weekend. Really good, strong tidal flow. Now, once a week, I'd like to call down to Cape San Blas and talk to Captain Blair Morgan to get a report sponsored by Blue Water Outriggers there in St. Joe. Remember, Blue Water now always has this huge sale that day after Thanksgiving, and I'm sure they're going to do it again this year. I'm going to talk to them later, but let's talk to Blair first. Good morning, Blair.
Good morning, Winston. How you doing?
I'm doing well. What's going on down your end of the woods?
Well, I tell you what, this time of year when there's not a whole lot of people out here on the Cape, Winston, it's too early for most snowbirds, and of course all the vacationers are gone. But this deep people fishing, I was going to the ball game last Friday, and I stopped in Bluntstown, and this boy come up and he started talking about all the fish he caught. I said, "What kind of fish you catch?" He said, "Pompano." I said, "Where'd you go?" And he said, "Well, I went down to St. Joe and caught him." And he had his limit of pompano.
Wow.
I don't know exactly where he caught him, but that was last Friday.
Well, that's good to hear.
But he said he's been catching limit about every day, and it doesn't take long to catch him. But he's the only one I've heard that from.
Well, that's a good report on it. Listen, those pompano, you know, they'll hang around. They'll come through a while, and then they'll hang around, and then they'll move on. So they must have been hanging around while he was there. Yeah,
I guess he just happened to hit it lucky there a day or two in a row. But tell you what, changing the horse a little bit, you know, squirrel season opened last weekend, and of course I went up there around Fort Gaston Creek and Apalachicola River, Graham Creek, all up through there, and I never saw a squirrel in 2 days. And the squirrel, I mean, it was bad. I got at least a dozen of my buddies up there I deer hunt with. You know, they was all up there on the houseboats, camping out and everything. And you know, most of them either might have got one or didn't see any, or, I mean, it was really bad. I don't know what happened to all the squirrels.
Wow.
Was it windy, Blair, when you were there?
No, it was beautiful, Stan. I tell you what, it couldn't have been prettier. It was cool. The sun came up real pretty, and the wind wasn't blowing. I mean, it was a perfect morning. But you didn't, you know, you walked through the woods, you couldn't see any squirrel nests or anything. There was really just no sign of squirrels anywhere.
Wow.
Well, that is something.
Got a disease a year or two ago. I know last year was real bad on the squirrels as well. But you know, you can come to town and see all the squirrels you want.
You go to my backyard.
One of my buddies, he lives not too far from me there on the river, and he's got a yard full of squirrels, and he went squirrel hunting, and he didn't kill one. Had his little boy with him. When he came back, he shot one in the yard just so they could say they got one.
Well, listen, you know, Blair, talking about that now, I've gotten several reports, and they all coincide with what you're saying. It's been really slow on the river at first, and a lot of people just not hearing them bark, or they're not hearing other gunshots or anything.
Yeah, like I said, I heard one squirrel one day and didn't hear another one the next day. And another thing, you know, the weather's been pretty warm up north too, but I didn't see or hear a wood duck the whole weekend either.
Huh. Well, we'll start checking on that. We'll start seeing. We'll get these FWC biologists checking on that, and we'll talk to Stan about it and check it out. We'll let you know. But anyway, thanks, Blair, for that report.
All right, we'll talk to y'all next week.
We'll see you. All right, bye. All right, we're going to take this first break and be back with Stan.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back and good morning, Stan.
Good morning. Good morning, Winston. I think I last saw you on the dove field.
I know that was the last time we saw you.
That was nice.
And you did real well that
Oh,
day.
I tell you, you and Walter, y'all really put on a nice a shindig for everybody. That was very nice food. You're quite the cook. We didn't know we were going to be catered quite like that.
Well, I'm not going to do it for a living. I just do it on occasion. But
that was good.
Oh,
that
good.
Was very
I'm
good.
glad you enjoyed it. Listen, we got a lot of stuff today.
Yeah.
Got pictures down here and good stories and all. So where do you want to get started?
Well, we'll talk about deer season for just a minute. The archery season is in, and we'll run through the 21st here in Zone D, where, of course, it starts over around the river and goes back to the west to Pensacola. But one of the archers, one of the local archers, killed a really fine buck this weekend. I don't know when we're going. This deer right here weighed. This deer was killed right here in Bay County. It weighed 226 pounds.
Wow.
He told me it was a fine deer. I said, that's a toad. I don't know about a deer, but that is one fine deer. It's a big, big 8-point. I didn't bring the photo showing the inside of his rack, but my guess is he probably was 18, 19 inches inside. And I would guess that deer will score in the probably the low to mid 120s. But just to go to show you, you can grow big bucks in the Panhandle. A lot of people say that you have to go to Alabama, Georgia, or somewhere north to grow big deer. But you know, and these people, this group, they really manage their deer. They don't shoot young bucks. They let their bucks get older. They try to shoot 4.5 or either 5.5-year-old bucks. And of course, they're very disciplined. They take some does off their property. But anyway, it just goes to show you when you manage your deer what you can do. Speaking of which, I was watching a show this weekend. It was Michael Waddell, and he was talking about deer management, and it was on the Sportsman Channel. But he was hunting, and people have told me this here, and I've never seen a good example here because we don't tag a lot of deer. We haven't tagged deer here since I think 79 and 80. But he actually killed a buck that had moved 9 miles from where it was tagged, but it had a collar on it, a radio tracking collar, and the deer was staying most of the time on a National Wildlife Refuge. But he had so much green stuff, the does would come, and as he said, those bucks will follow the ladies. And he killed him 9 miles from his core range. And that just goes to show you, if you've got a small piece of property, it's really difficult. You need to go in together with other landowners around you and try to come to some consensus that you're going to let them walk until they're, you know, larger, have bigger antlers, whether it's, you know, 4.5 years or whatever, or say 6 points or 8 points, whatever you choose to do, but let them get bigger anyway.
Yeah, and research after research shows that if you've got those, the bucks will come.
Yeah, that's exactly. And again, you know, things have changed so in the last 30 years. I've worked long enough that, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, and I know we were talking to Blair a few minutes ago. During those days, if it had a 5-inch antler, it was if it ran by somebody, it was a dead deer.
That's right.
Well, now people don't do that. They let them, for the most part, they let them get older, and we're seeing the fruits of that.
Yeah. Well, that's a 224-pound Bay County
226,
buck. 226-pound Bay County buck. So that's speaks volume.
And they actually killed one on this property last year that weighed 235 pounds.
Wow.
And I've got the pictures of it, and it's as impressive as this deer. It's amazing.
And that's a good gene pool too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right,
doing it right.
Listen, let's take this quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us this morning. Don't forget the Wild Game Cookout tonight at First Baptist Church. We'll try to see some of y'all there if we could. Stan Kirkland sitting here. We got a lot more good stuff. The deer management unit is sort of a buzzword now. Yeah,
Winston. One of the things that our agency's doing is we've contracted with a natural resource company to contact hunters, farmers, landowners. They're doing this not only by mail, but they're also calling people to get to gauge public support or interest in going to deer management units within the hunting zones. So, and of course, if you go to deer management units, what you can do is tailor those units to such as the possibility is to tailor those units to such things as antler restrictions. In other words, say that within this unit you could only shoot 6 points or greater if they're bucks, more antlerless opportunity, perhaps either a day hunting day adjustment. But anyway, those are the kind of things that we're going to be looking at to see if there's support for those or not. And again, if you get a call, if you get a letter from FWC or this company asking to participate in this effort, if you'll do that, we would appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, we're going to talk more about that because it's a developing program.
Right, that's exactly right. And the last thing about deer, let me mention this. With hunting season on everybody's mind, in some states their seasons are either mid-swing or will soon be over, at least in early December. But if you're a Florida resident and you're in the sound of our voice and you plan to hunt in a state such as the Midwest, or you go up north, you need to check and find out if that state is what's called a CWD state. CWD stands for chronic wasting disease. If you kill a trophy in that state, whether it's a white-tailed deer, elk, or moose, of course, we don't have a lot of people that go moose hunting in Alaska or wherever, or in the Northwest United States. But if you do that, if it's a CWD state, you cannot bring that head back. You can only bring the antlers and the meat back. You have to bone it out. But we don't. Pennsylvania is the latest state that where CWD has been found, actually found in a game farm. They believe that it was transported into Pennsylvania in white-tailed deer, and that's why there's a shutdown nationwide on moving deer, because that's usually the way it's transported and makes big leaps, not state to state necessarily, but where you move it from over several hundred miles. It's infected deer, so that's why you can't move them unless those deer are inspected by USDA and you have veterinary approval and the paperwork and all that.
Okay, so keep that in mind. Now listen, you've got some more changing from deer to eagle. Now you've got some great pictures of these eagles here. Tell us about these pictures.
Yeah, Winston, this is a time of year when our bald eagles are migrating back into the area. I know I was over on Crooked Island a couple of weeks ago, and there were a pair of eagles that were just chattering the whole time we were there. Officer Nick Price that works with FWC, Nick is a very accomplished photographer, does a tremendous job. Nick made these series of photographs that we're looking at. That was an immature eagle, the one that you just had up.
Okay, that was
this is a mature bird pitching out of a tree, out of a big pine tree, and really great photography here. And again, when they're 4 years older and older, they develop the white head feathers, the white tail feathers. You don't see that until they're at least 4 years old. And then the last photo is pretty remarkable. He and another officer were up on Deer Point Lake, and this bald eagle swooped down and picked up a coot. There is a coot in this bird's talons, and unfortunately, I think that coot was dinner.
Wow.
The dinner bell rang. But,
I guess the coot population at Deer Point Lake is one less now.
Yeah. I think the coots were all looking for a gopher hole to get in after that, because that was kind of
great, dude. That is
yeah.
a great shot.
He's a wonderful photographer, and Nick sent me some photos. He occasionally sends photos through, and he's a very accomplished photographer. In 1973, we had 88 active bald eagle nests in Florida. In 2011, we counted almost 1,500 bald eagle nests. In fact, we have more bald eagles than any state with any state other than, I believe it's Alaska. I think we come in second to Alaska, and that's really a testament to the protection that's been afforded bald eagles, and not only that, people are very good, landowners, citizens are very good about, you know, not encroaching where they know their bald eagle nest and letting the birds raise. I know we've got one that we watched last year right at our office up on Deer Point Lake, and that was the, I think, I'm trying to remember if it was the second or third year, but I believe that was the third year that we had seen those two birds raise young. And so very, very exciting things about bald eagles.
You know, we have such a neat area for them. Right. Here at the Panhandle, you got St. Vincent Island, the Apalachicola Forest, and then all the lakes and all. Even Deer Point Lake with people around, they still nesting good. When
I moved to Panama City in 1978, the only nest in the Panhandle, bald eagle nests, were on St. Vincent Island. There were 4 nests then, and wow. Now we have dozens of nests. And in fact, not all counties, but most of our Panhandle counties have bald eagle nests. We have so many eagles. We actually participated in a project several years ago for over a 10-year period where we allowed scientists to come in and take eagle eggs out of our nest early in December, and they took them back to Oklahoma, hatched them, never allowed the eagle to see a person. They had people dressed in eagle costumes that fed them, and they this hatching program, this rearing program, they literally took, they tried to take 100 eggs per year and hatch these birds, and over a 10-year period, they literally planted bald eagles in most southern states as a result of this project.
That's good. Okay, we're going to take a break now. Be right back. All right, welcome back. On the last segment here with Lieutenant Stan Kirkland with FWC, a familiar face, always comes on once a month, always great information. Speaking of great information, let's look at our time for today. We're looking at the time, we're looking at 12:49 to 2:49, a peak period right in the middle of the day. Then tonight, I'm sorry, it's 1:21 to 3:21. Let's look at that again, 1:21 to 3:21 after lunch. And then the other time was 12:49 to 2:49 in the morning, okay, a.m. All right. All right, Stan, you had a couple more things?
Well, a couple of things. Winston, I want to tell you really a hats off to, we had 27 officers and a radio technician that returned this weekend on Sunday. They actually returned from New Jersey. They went up on November the 3rd. They were up there from the 3rd through this past Sunday, which I believe was the 11th. And they experienced weather from one end to the other. I think they got there, the weather was cold, but then they had another nor'easter to come through, and almost like gale conditions. They had, I think, 5 or 6 inches of snow while they were there. And in fact, they were dressed, they had good clothing. Our agencies issued them good clothing, and they really enjoyed it. They were in a place called Oceanside, New Jersey, and it was really interesting. I was talking to Lieutenant Jay Chesser yesterday. Jay was with this group, and they did things like work 911 response. They worked roadblocks. They did curfew enhancement, make sure people are off the roads, but mainly, to keep people out of areas where people have lost, practically everything, keep people from looting and that sort of thing. They did. But they stayed at Fort Dix. They're in the barracks at Fort Dix, New Jersey. But Jay said they were very well received. People couldn't have been any nicer. Were appreciative of them coming, and couldn't believe that a group of officers from Florida would travel up to help them. But he said there were about 250 out-of-state officers there. They were the only officers from a Fish and Wildlife Agency, but most of them were state troopers from. Or state police from other states, but it's it's amazing the way people come together. I know in Katrina, when we sent a group over to Biloxi, Mississippi to help out in 2005, I was with the second group, and some of the people I was talking with were Indiana game and fish guys.
It's amazing how Americans pull together and help each other out in tough times like that.
Yep.
It is good.
Yeah, those guys were terrible drivers, though. One of them knocked the door off the other's vehicle while we were there, and then they ran into one of our vehicles. They were great guys, but terrible drivers.
Well, now, next time, tell them a video. That'd make some really good video.
Well, they pulled a trick. We don't have enough time, but I'll tell you sometime, maybe we'll tell us on the air, I'll tell you the trick that they pulled on these guys when they ran into our truck, and it couldn't have worked any better.
Okay.
The last thing I was going to mention, Winston, is about people with exotic pets. One of the things that we hear from people, particularly people that move in from out of state, they don't understand what, they've bought for instance, a python somewhere, they've bought a monkey, you name it. There's all kind of animals, and including fish that go into this. Even fish that you don't think about being a pest or an invasive species, but if it's not a resident animal and you bring it into Florida or you purchase it into Florida, it is never a good idea to release that animal into the wild, because we really have a multi-million-dollar problem right now with invasive species. I think most people know that we've got pythons right now that are breeding in the wild in South Florida, several species of pythons that are breeding in the wild. Thank goodness we don't have them up here. I hope and pray we don't get them up here, but that's an everyday thing where they're collecting these snakes in South Florida, primarily in the Everglades area. I did see where a python was recovered this weekend in the Ocala National Forest, but I don't know whether that was a snake that had made its way north, or if that was a snake that somebody had just dumped out. But never release them. Call us if you need advice on what to do with them. We do have amnesty days around the state where you can take those animals and turn them over, and we'll try to provide. We try to find somebody to take care of them.
Hey, they don't need to purchase monkeys now. They can come to my third period class. I got a couple of monkeys in my third period class. So, Stan, thank you so much.
All right.
All right, listen.
Thank you, Winston.
Hey, thank y'all for watching the show. We appreciate you watching. Listen, sometime during the course today, you do something good for somebody. God bless.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.